Hello and welcome to Monkeys with Fire. You join me again on another workshop with Pascal, and tonight he shall be demonstrating OSL techniques on the Necromancer bust from Sunshine Figures. If you are brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the latest miniature painting and tabletop gaming videos. Also, don't miss the live Twitch channel weeknights Monday to Thursday from 7 o'clock BST. Click the link below. And now, on with the show. Good evening, Pascal.
Good evening, everybody, and good evening, Monkey. How are you doing?
I'm very well, sir. And you?
I'm very well, except for the eyes, of course, but that's still mending. It's okay. I got this amazing, really cool bust, the Necromancer from Sunshine Figures, which is holding a spell in her hand. It's a flaming skull, and I thought of doing that flaming skull as a source of light. So what I did in preparation is I spray painted it completely black. Usually I do a zenithal highlight with white spray, but I didn't do it this time. I sprayed the skull in pure white, almost completely white, because that's got to be the brightest point in the entire scene. And then I just fiddled a bit with my airbrush this morning to get a small view to what my playing area is going to be in the green glow effect. And when I show you the bust in a second, you'll see what I mean. So what am I going to do tonight? I'm going to sketch in the glow, the green glow, starting from dark to the brightest bright. We've got some cool range of colors set up for that. And when that's done, and this is for a later stage, then I'll be blending in the other colors in the darker zones that are not yet lit. So this is the bust. She's called a Necromancer for obvious reasons. Let's see that I get her a bit nicer in the picture.
Yeah, that's great.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
And she's huge. The fact that this arm extends so far outward and backwards is really unique for a bust of this kind of magnitude. It makes the entire set pretty wide, but still it's awesome, I guess. So we've got the skull here, really nice sculpt. Got some flames on here, and so I've spray painted this white. And by doing this white, when I go over with the bright green colors, I make sure that the green is as bright as possible. So as you can see, I did a light spray with first off with a bit of white, just lightly sprayed from this point outward, and then did it with a dark green, which is this dark green. Well, actually, I did it with another brand, but I'm gonna work with Vallejo tonight. Sorry, with Scale Color tonight. But I did a dark green, and you can see how bright this green is, which was actually this dark. But because I did a bright undercoat, you can see it pop out much more. So I got a straight line from somewhere around here, going all the way there, and now I got to see my playing field where all the greens are going to be, and if I turn it this way, you see complete black, which should be the thing. So like I said, there are areas like these rims which are going to be metal, and metal is going to be much more reflective and much brighter in reflection than, let's say, the leather parts of this and the pads, or even the cowl. But the skin on that part is going to be much more brighter even. Right, so I got my color set up here. This is what I'm going to use. So obviously black and white, these are the extended ranges. I got a dark green. I'm probably going to mix up these two to blend in the edges nicely towards black. Then I've got a basic green, which is going to be used to get more light into there. And then to get a really bright green, I'm going to add this fluor green fluo from model color into this one, which is gonna make the green really pop. And for the skull, which is gonna be almost near white, I'm gonna work further with this color, and obviously with white in there. So these are my colors. Of course, I always have some trusty Water Plus on hand as well, which is going to be there in my reservoir there. Going to thin it thoroughly. Get some Water Plus in there. And here we go. So I like to start on the face first. No idea why. Just like to. I'm going to go a bit farther into the black than it is right now. I'm just gonna color it all. So the brighter underlayer is gonna help me still define where the brightest spots are gonna be. As you can see, I've toned it a bit down. All the greens that are there, except for the armor. I still need to do the armor bit. But just with a thin, like glaze-like consistency, I put on some greens, and I put it much more into the blacks, like in here. You can hardly see it. It seems pure black, but trust me, there's some green in here, like there. So at first, what I want to try to achieve is get this green essence all over this side of the model. Even in the darker shades, it's seeming to be green. This is a part that I like very much, because actually it's pretty dark in here. There's hardly any light from the skull coming in here, except for these two twirly things, which I'm definitely gonna make like in a metal kind of fashion. So they're gonna catch up a lot of light, and it's gonna be pretty bright there. And her bum.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for joining the channel. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Eddie. There we go. I'm gonna go over to the pure color. So what I did was a mix of these two, like black and dark green. I'm gonna go for pure dark green. I'm gonna add the first step towards bringing in some light. And I'm gonna do this a bit less glazy as before. Still gonna add some Water Plus there, because Water Plus is just amazing. And this is where the Scale 75 paints come in handy, because they blend with each other so very well that yeah, well, it's just amazing. And really, it seems counterproductive to work away all the highlights I did before with the airbrush. But it's a process kind of thing, and yeah, it still helps me figuring out how the bust is working, how the light is working, to do it this way. I think when this part is done, I'm going to work on the other part, where you definitely can see what the materials are like in normal lighting. Which obviously, like I explained in previous theory on OSL, said this is the brightest part, so this light should be the brightest. So this part is going to be much more toned down in grayscale, so to say. still, there's going to be a lot of purples in here because I'm envisioning her in a lot of purples. Of course, her skin's going to be pretty bright still, even in the non-lit area. So it's not like this is the only light source there's going to be. There's going to be just normal zenithal lighting as well. But that's probably for a much later stage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the nice thing about it, isn't it? Because of course we're going to come back to you with another workshop in a couple of weeks, where we'll be able to see the progress you've made and then sort of pick up from there.
Yes.
So, what, while you're sort of putting on these glazy layers, what do you think of the bust? What do you think of the character?
Amazing. When I first saw the online pictures, I was somewhat. Well, I wasn't overly enthusiastic at first. It's not that I thought they were bad busts, but there are coming out so many figures and busts at the moment that I really thought, well, this is just another one from a dozen. But this one spoke the most to me, mainly because of what I just said, the really unique composition of the arms, the wide angle that it's taken with the idea of being able to make this an original source, object source lighting theory. So I picked this one, and when I got it, I was amazed by the sculpt, actually. I had to do a couple of tweaking thingies just to sculpt some bubbles away and that kind of stuff, but that's usual. And I immediately felt comfortable with the size. It's actually way bigger than the usual busts I do. Like I just showed you that bust earlier, which is much smaller actually. So yeah, I think I'm going to be in love with her. So I'm going to take this dark green that I'm using here all over, and I'm going to start just a little bit on these white parts and just see the difference in this green and this green. So this is what your base coat is doing. See that?
Yeah.
This is why I did this in white. I really like working with scale 75 in this kind of scale, in this kind of technique, because the moment you put on the color, it's going to look pretty bright, but if you let it dry up, you're going to see that it dies down a lot, working with the undertone color. So, but for instance, let me show you. I do this here in the cowl. And you really see that area being like a layer in there, right?
Yep.
And you're thinking, oh, I've got to fidget that away and it's going to show up, it's going to show up. But I'm going to let that dry. And you'll see that the effect has nearly died. You can almost see it dry up right now. If I blow it, can you see that?
Yeah, it's all starting to fade away, isn't it?
Indeed. So this is what scale 75 does. So the brightness of that green here, it is still wet, is not as bright, or this is brighter than it's going to be like when it's dried up. This is something you should know about the paints you're working with. How do they dry up and what's the end effect? And if you're not sure about that, make sure to be patient enough to wait to dry so you can see what the effect is before you start slapping on more paint. It's not bright enough, it's not bright enough. Okay, here's another color. I've then added some, what's this, erratic green. Anyway, it's a bright green to my darkening green. I make it a bit darker here. Gotta make sure not to make not too big steps in the color transitions. Erotic green. No, Sarah. Irati. But if you want erotic green, by all means. I like this step. Just slap it on. Make sure it's thin enough, but just slap it on. You can see I'm having trouble with the size of the bust as something that I'm not familiar with while streaming, because I have trouble keeping it in on screen. There we go. This is still bright, you know.
Wow, yeah.
Gonna work up this skull way much more towards near white. So now to not confuse myself, I'm gonna work up from that bright light source. So I started further away towards here, and now I'm gonna do it the other way around. So I'm not gonna confuse myself of going too light in here. So at a certain point, I should stop putting on light there, while I'm still putting on light here. And as you can see, I'm already starting to be much more careful on what I'm painting, how I'm painting.
I love the luminosity of the skull. That's just awesome.
The brightness of the skull in conjunction with the darker bits here in the contrast, it's really giving me already the feel of a glow.
Yeah.
Which is pretty unsettling, actually, working with it. A fun fact, what I'm already taking into account is the material I'm painting. So for instance, this is going to be leather, which I can smooth out a bit more. But there's also a bit of stippling in there. This is going to be plate, so that's much smoother. This is skin, and especially later on, and when I'm going much lighter, you're going to see that I'm going to be stippling much more, like this, to get that that feeling of texture as well. Although it's just all green and green and green. It's going to help you define what you're looking at. So it's not all the same stuff. So this is cloth, and if I want to do cloth with a nice texture, I'm going to be much more like small stripes. And at this point, I'm still using my number 1 brush, which is pretty huge and pretty rough. So at this point, it's no use doing this. Well, a little bit. But you'll see me using smaller brushes later on. And it's really difficult to show you the work on the cowl with the skull in front of her. I'll do the best I can, okay? This is a fun part, because usually when I do faces, there's a certain process I'm doing, you know, about where shades and highlights should be, how to tone different areas redder or not, and which is in every face almost the same. And now I've got to rethink everything, because the light is coming from a very different angle, and obviously it's a different color. So I've got to think much more on this as a surface instead of as a face, and just see the spheres popping up and then seeing where to put light and not. I'm gonna make the skin much lighter than the cowl for 2 reasons. One, skin is obviously more reflective of this light source. But 2, the cowl is in essence is going to be much darker than the face is going to be. So this is how material also works with light. I'm gonna go to this color purely, the erotic green, so to say. And this is a pretty big step. And I hope it's gonna take. So like I said, scale 75 tends to dull down a lot. And as bright as it is on my palette, it's not gonna be that bright on the model, except for the skull maybe. Look at that. I think I'm going to work on the skull off camera after the stream much more. I don't know. It depends on how quickly this is going.
Are you going to actually build the skull up to a near white then, I assume?
Yes.
Right. I don't know if it's maybe just the camera setup, but every time you bring the skull round, you can see this really bright, blown out sort of highlight, but it looks brilliant. Yeah. Looks scary as well.
That's the whole idea. Oh, it's a minty green right now. Yeah, the skull it is, and that's going to be the idea. So now I've got to start playing with the thickness of my paint, because there are obviously areas where I need to have it blend right nicely to get that light. But also I'm trying to take into consideration the hard edges. So like for instance, these this side of those belts here. And I can do them with the glaze right now. But it would be much more efficient if I used a bit thicker paint and make it really hard. You already can start to see how just this layer is gonna make the light pop, and I've got to be very careful where to put this, because obviously it cannot be as bright everywhere. The good rule of thumb is the farther away it is from the source, the darker it should be. Now this is an interesting part. This is probably the part I'm gonna love the most. Trying to get that skin really shiny here. Still have it look like skin. Let's bring in some real light. So this is probably gonna be the cool part. I'm gonna add some fluo, green fluo, to that brighter green I just used. And instead of just going for something like this is just matting it down and not really bringing in the brightness of the green. This fluo is just going to be amazing. All right. So I'm going to switch over to a smaller brush. This is my 0. I'm really not a big fan of synthetic brushes, but these have perfect tips. All right. Now I'm going to go start in the face, because I just love doing the face. Oh, that's hardly going to do anything. There. Can you see how that works?
Yeah.
Just the face. Suddenly it just all pops up. The downside of this fluo paint is it's a bit thick, and heavy body kind of paint, or so it seems. So there's a lot of keeping it well, thinned down. This is going to be hard because I'm going to try to get that edge here. For the close observers, if you've seen how I did my starting stage with the airbrush, and just saw how well defined or less defined the light was, then you should have seen that this part was actually much darker than I painted it right now. And this is something you should do always when attempting things like this. Make your own decisions. Even always think of it, does it add to the model if I just break the rules a little bit and break the reality a bit and just show light where it actually shouldn't be there. All right, let's work up to that arm. There's going to be a lot of light up there. So this first part is going to be bathing in the light source, so there's still going to be just a lot of slapping it on. The further down we go, got to be much more neat. See how thick that is on my brush?
Yeah.
Well, there's much more light in there. Still need to do, I think I should bring in some more light here. It's also taking into account what do you do for reality and what are you doing for dramatic purposes. So that's the fun thing about fantasy figures. It's all about telling that story with all its dramatics. This skull is still a lot of rough work right now, but believe me, there's going to be some tidying up after. There's going to be a bit of work here on the fingers. You see that I'm painting the entire finger green, but to get that feel of light going through the fingers, I've got to make this side much darker again. That's all going to be done in cleanup process. Still, if you compare the brightness of this to the brightness of that, I still could use a lot of light more. Well, let's revisit. I'm going to do a glaze of this fluo color. I've just took this color out. Primavera Spring Green. That's a nice name. Which is, well, a much lighter green. I've not added the fluor anymore because I really want to have the highlights in now. And you can see it in the flames already.
Yeah. For any of you guys who have been inspired to want to paint a bust from Sunshine Figures, of course, check out the online store. So that is !Sunshine Figures. And then take yourself a 10% discount code, which is !discount.
There. Do you see how that spot here just dots in there?
Yeah, yeah.
How it just makes it, and instantly makes it a shiny object compared to the environment around it. Here's a perfect example on how certain materials reflect from even a farther distance. This is metal, so there's still a bit of reflection there, while the leather here is much darker already, which is not so reflective anymore at that distance. I've done bust before, right? And so the busts I am looking for are increasingly more intricate and more interesting, and etc., etc. But these busts that Sunshine Figures are doing are really easily accessible for beginner painters, just as well as they're still interesting for the more advanced painter. So if you're thinking about doing a bust for the first time, definitely think of Sunshine Figures for your first bust, because they are excellent first busts.
Absolutely.
I've started the final highlight color. This is white with just a dash of the green, the last green I added. And you already can see that face. I love that face already. It's really glowing at just the right spots. This is what makes that face really that lush female vibrant flesh, that it's really reflective in contrast to the cowl around it. Not going to brighten up the skull anymore right now, but I do want to finish whatever you see still on this part. So there we are, guys. As far as I'm going to get it. In the coming weeks, I'll probably be doing a lot of work on this side of the model, where I'll be adding some real colors, the original colors of the cloak and the metals and the leathers and etc., the skin tones, and I'm going to blend it over, darken it. I'm going to treat it as if there's a light up here, just a zenithal light. But as soon as it's turning towards the green side, I'm going to darken it really fast, so that there's a dark transition between the original color and this green here. So this part is going to be all black, or darkened at least. And then I'm going to turn it towards the other color. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you got to learn a lot. Got your questions answered, and if you still got questions after this, by all means do not hesitate to contact Monkeys with Fire or me privately to ask your questions. And that's it. Class dismissed.
Yes. All right then, guys. So our thanks to Pascal for tonight's workshop. I hope you did all enjoy that. So thank you to following for I Eat Well, Spirule, Dr. DD and Eddie DuPont. Thank you so much to Lornor for subscribing to the channel. And of course, thank you everybody for watching. Very much appreciated. We enjoy your company. Right then, I guess that brings it all to a close. So thanks once again, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. But until then, bye bye for now.